Okay, welcome everyone to the September 16th Park and Rec Committee meeting. We will do a roll call as we always do. We'll start at this end.
Greg McCurry.
Amanda Cahill.
Terry Cope.
Larry Schultz.
Mary Larson.
Jacob Paul.
Okay, thanks everyone. The first item on their agenda this evening is approval of the minutes. So has everybody had a chance to review those? And if so, somebody want to make a motion to approve those?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just had one maybe typo to update. In one of the end of the paragraph, it said committee discussion, and it's at the very end of a sentence. The desire to have all trail connects. I don't know if that was meant to be trail connected or connections or something, but.
Okay, all right, anything else? If not, a motion with that correction will be in order.
I'll motion to approve with the correction.
Okay, Terry, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mary. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes with the correction, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The minutes are approved. Okay, next item, petitions, proclamations, suggestions, or complaints from citizens, committee members, or staff. Don't have anyone in the public here this evening. Anybody on the committee have anything they'd like to bring up? Or heard from anybody?
No.
Okay. Then we have a couple things. Staff has some updates, I believe. So Jenna, do you want to
Yes.
fill us in?
So things have been a little busy on the Park and Rec side. So we've got some updates in terms of projects that have been happening at the Victoria Recreation Center. So the painting project that was underway a good majority of the summer is complete, minus a few touch-ups here and there that our city staff will handle. So if you haven't had the chance yet to check out the Recreation Center, it definitely looks a little bit more fresh, a lot more bright. We've received pretty good feedback from the public that's been coming in, so that's been wonderful. We've also got the concrete project that was scheduled for the back area to increase accessibility to get rid of the lip between entering the building and the sidewalk. That has been completed and is done. We've also been working on fixing the flagpole to be able to get the flag erected, and so we've got the parts for that ordered, so that should be completed soon. And then the landscaping in front of the Victoria Recreation Center, we've been working with the Parks and Recreation and the Public Works team to come up with a plan for how we're going to address that. And so you can definitely check out the Parks and Trails projects page for updated information ongoing. But a very quick synopsis of what that is this fall we're going to be working on getting the weeds removed, taking away any dead shrubs, putting down a weed barrier and mulching it to prepare it for over the winter. And then in the spring, it will be planted with new stuff and freshening it up around there. And so again, for any of those projects, feel free to check that projects page and we'll update it when we have more information there. Another update is to our Deer Run Park 1 location. So earlier this year, as you all know, there was a installation of a new playground unit. And so in terms of feedback from residents and just in terms of space that we still have able to utilize, we've been working with the contractors to add in some additional features there. And so with the space that we have provided and the funding that was still remaining from that project, we're able to move forward with that. So we're in the final stages of planning out what those would be. And the intention for this is to be able to widen the age gap of what this park can serve. And so some of the amenities will be some more climbing features, things like that are more appropriate for a wider age range. So families with kids of all ages will be able to enjoy the facility. That also is listed on that Parks and Trails page, project page site, so you can check there for more details. And then just in terms of upcoming events, we've got Donuts in Victoria happening this Wednesday. It's theme this week is Meet Your CSO, so feel free to join us at 9 at the Rec Center. We've also got a first ever women's self-defense class that'll be taught this Thursday evening, so if you or anybody you know would be interested in signing up, that would be a great opportunity. And then we've also got Barnyard Boogie happening this Friday, held in collaboration with Chanhassen. It'll be at the Chanhassen Recreation Center. So those are the things that are coming up.
Okay, any questions for Jenna?
Oh, I do have a question. I didn't see it on here, and it still might be out there. Is the survey still open?
Yes,
Or-
absolutely.
Okay, yeah, how long is that open
So the
for?
survey is going to be open until mid-October. And
Oh,
so there's still
okay.
plenty of opportunity for people to get in there. And so it's available online. We've got lots of signage around the city in general, but a lot of it around the rec center. So there's still opportunity to get feedback in there.
Great.
We've had a pretty good response so far. There's well over 200 that have done it already,
Great.
which is really good. So
Yeah.
we're hoping to get more in the next month or so.
Yeah.
To have a pretty good grasp on what people are saying.
And then another survey that I got separate from the rec center survey was in relation to a program that my child had participated in over the summer.
Yep.
So were there surveys sent out for like all programs or just like select key programs? I mean, I thought it was great. I don't remember having received a survey about like participation in a program and feedback on it. So just, I wanted to hear from you, like what's new there.
Yep, so new this year, all of our programs that were run in-house, so our 2 different playground camps, as well as our youth T-ball and Coach Pigs leagues, all received a survey so that we can get feedback on how the season went, things that we're looking forward to, potential opportunities for growth, things like that. And so this is something that's going to be ongoing for any of our programs that are run in-house. And so we launched that this year, and that's something that we will continue to do to make sure that we're getting the feedback from the people who use it the most.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, moving right on, there's no old business, and we have a couple items for new business. New business. The first is a sketch plat for the commercial area.
Yes. So this first one, just as a reminder, we are not doing any approvals or actions for the course of this meeting. This is a process to provide guidance to those that are applying to have those developments. And so this is for both of the projects that we've got coming forward tonight. This is a great opportunity for us to give feedback before they move forward with any development. So I encourage you to share as much as you can about the implementation of this development. So the first one that we are discussing is in that Victoria commercial area. And so if you look at this, so what I tried to do, and you'll see this image more than one time, just for the sake of trying to get a good grasp on where this image is. And so for this one, we are looking at the yellowish, like goldenrod kind of color. That is the Victoria commercial section that we are referring to, and only a portion of that commercial section is being proposed to be developed. We will see a picture later on in this presentation that has some potential designs for other areas, but I will make it very clear which one is the one coming forward as a proposed development. And so this section is the Bovee property, which is located to the northwest of Highway 10 and 11 intersection. And the proposal that's coming forward today, its intended use is a retail establishment slash auto service gas station. So it is a quick trip that is being presented. So on this page, I'm trying to make it as unconfusing as possible. So for the one on the far left, this is mimicking the same direction that is in that middle image, just so you can clearly see which direction everything is facing. But the sketch plat itself was presented in this direction. And so for these, this is the area that it's covering, but this proposed development is happening right here. These sections are potentials of what could that space be utilized for, but this is the only one that is an actual proposal. And so in this large space, it's just this quadrant up here that is being proposed to be developed currently. Any questions on this slide before I move?
And then, so the Victoria South adjacent to it.
Yep, so that is a development that is occurring right above it.
Yep, that's townhomes that we.
Yep, so the
reviewed a
one-
sketch plat earlier.
On this one that says by others, this is one that you've already reviewed.
Yep,
So you'll notice that on the other one.
okay.
Okay. All right, and so for a commercial development, they do have requirements for park dedication as well. For that, the proposal did not include a dedication for parkland, but they would be required to fulfill the requirement. So either it would be the acreage or the dollar rate. And so something that we will be considering later on is how do we want to move forward with that, with fulfilling that requirement in this type of an area. And so you'll see listed what that formula is and what it would be for this particular location. All right, so for this proposal, first question that I have for everyone here, unless you have questions before we get to this, is should a park be recommended for future commercial development such as this?
That's comments?
So meaning in like, it's already a requirement that they either dedicate land or cash,
Correct.
but meaning in any commercial development, should we consider there a park to be there in
Yeah, essentially-
over the cash?
Yes, essentially the question is, in a commercial area, would you prefer them fulfill the requirement by dedicating the cash fees, or do you want them to develop a park in that commercial area?
Does it depend on the circumstances? For example, in the downtown west, there's what I've seen, and I don't know if it's going forward or not, but apartment buildings with retail under it. That might be a little different. I don't know if we need a big park, but having a town square or some benches or some small gathering spot, I think would be nice in that area. For a quick trip on a corner someplace, probably not. So I don't, at this point in time, I'm guessing that this commercial area, self-commercial area is, other than Quick Trip, do we know if anything else is going in there and what type of thing's going in there at
As of
all?
right now, the only development proposed for that commercial area is the Quick Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, that is the only thing that we know of that is going in that area.
So for that particular one, my thoughts are that, we really wouldn't need a park in the Quick Trip, that area itself. And I guess my thought would be take the cash, and if the other part's developed and it ends up being a lot of housing in there and we want to have a little town square or something, we have some funds set aside to do that, potentially. That's my own thoughts on that. I don't know what others might feel differently.
I would agree with you, Larry. And is this like a question that you're trying to kind of streamline a process where you?
Yeah, so kind of two parts. One, do we want one for this development? And again, this is only for that one small section of the commercial area, not the thing at large. But is it something that we want to consider? So it's part A is, do we want it for this particular development? And then part B of the question is, would we want it in a larger development? Which I would say, to your point, if there are residential, that would be a different consideration. We're kind of thinking more so if it's commercial, so businesses, not necessarily residences.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, was this originally zoned like commercial? Where we are right now with the space here and the library and whatnot, because now we have the beautiful, bandshell park space
I don't
Right.
have the history to that.
adjacent.
Predates me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking ahead to, like, I don't, for this, in particular, that little edge of Quick Trip, yes, it might not make sense. But if there's other things that go in there that are zoned commercial, but yet, like, it makes sense right here, you know, if this were zone commercial and that beautiful, you know, Banchal Park area is now a park next to it, like, this does make sense, you know?
So, you know, basically dependent on what the other things are. If it's a gas station / convenience store, probably not, but if it's, you know, other, you know, businesses that, not just office building, but other things where people would gather, it all depends on what, I guess, what it is. It's,
Could you go back to the, kind of the photo and
I had a
overview of
question
it?
about the,
That'd be helpful just to see while we're having the discussion. That's perfect, thank you.
This one or the main?
No, this looks great. This, for me at least, this helps me visualize what we're talking about.
do you know if there's like a dashed line kind of along the
A what?
top, a dashed line along the top here? Is that a trail? What is that?
Where
Right below,
are you referring?
Like below the red? Yeah, where it says Victoria Drive County Road 11.
right to the right of, I know what you're talking about. So the proposed development, on the picture on the right,
Okay.
you got the proposed development, and just to the right of that, there's that dotted lines that go north and south. Yeah.
That's a
east and
road.
west. That's a what?
It's a road. It's
I
not.
think that's a power line actually, but
Is that
no,
a?
I was talking about the one along that's
the-
parallel to the road, that dashed line. Is that meant to be a trail or is that just a?
No idea which line.
On the top by the. Yeah,
Can you just point on the TV screen?
which line? Oh, yeah, okay.
That's just the perimeter of the location. It's not a trail.
you know, and that's probably a good,
This does say proposed trail through here, but it's not connecting to anything, I guess. Because I was gonna say, the only thing that seems like we might want something would be a trail in front of that quick trip, like a trail connection.
I would agree with that. We've talked about that whole County Road 11 going out towards Lake Town, you know, wanting that all a trail at some point. So now would be the time to do it. So at least on that side of the property, I would think we'd want them to do that as part of the development. And, you know, maybe that's, I don't know if that suffices as their park contribution or not, if the trails or not.
I would agree, and I think as there's commercial developed into that corner, there's gonna be kids like mine who get on their bikes and go down there and buy candy, whatever,
Right.
or the ice cream bar or something. So I think from a park perspective, we want to make sure that there is the ability to safely move from the neighborhoods to the north of that down to that retail area. I think that would be something that would be important. Just because I know that as my kids ride around town and they always end up somewhere with a, you know, couple bucks in their pocket buying something, so.
Yeah, and Chaska has a pretty good trail system if you keep going south on Victoria Drive, so you could just keep going. So, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to connect up to that.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? So what I've heard so far is we don't necessarily see a park solely for Quick Trip, but we kind of want it open for dependent what else might go in there for others, for other space. And that we want to be cognizant of having a bike trail, walking path along County Road 11, so we don't have a gap there.
Yes.
Because once it's there, it's harder to, we found out it's a little harder to get things done, so.
John, I was a little surprised to see a road coming in off of Victoria Drive to access this commercial. Isn't that it appears to be a road coming off of Victoria Drive into the quick trip area, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they would need a way to
Yeah.
drive into
So
the development.
is that going to be eventually a roundabout there? Do we know what the county plans are?
It depends on what the rest of the development ends up looking like. So everything in this section here is not developed. And there's no proposals to develop it right now. So as of right now, the only road addition would be the ones that would access the Quick Trip. So the rest would come when the rest got developed.
So that raises another question, and perhaps there isn't an answer at this time, but is there any desire to have sidewalk or something through that area eventually? I mean, if there's a road goes in there, to Greg's point earlier, you know, one thing they'll be able to access the Quick Trip, but if there's another candy store that goes down here in the corner, I don't know. Just a question.
Yeah, I think it would really depend on what else goes in there, because this has like high-density residential in there, and then you would definitely want some sidewalks.
And I guess there's still room because of that whole development. If there's a road that goes in there, it's gonna abut anything new that goes in there. So probably, you know, our thoughts there are going to be based on whatever comes in there at that time. We'll still have time to address that. But I think we're all in agreement that for sure County Road, anything along County Road 11 should have a bike trail. Anything else? Okay, thanks. Thanks for the maps too, and
Yes.
putting them on the order so they match up and we know where they're at. I was so confused that last meeting, I was like, I couldn't get straight which direction things were going.
Yeah, it's always a little confusing when the map that you're familiar with is a different orientation than the sketch plot itself. So did my best to try to provide you the most accurate information.
should just be-
A lot of this was my own self-discovery too, so.
Very good.
All right, so the next one that we have to review is the sketch plat that was presented for the, I can never say this one, Kuchemeister residential development. So again, same concept as before, no approvals or actions are needed, but please provide any feedback on the direction of this proposal. So for this area, back to that same map that I had showed you beforehand, the development that we're looking at is the one in the dark purple. Far to the left here. And so this one is proposing 163 single-family homes and 80 multifamily townhomes. So this is the area, and then just we'll come back to neighboring parks in a different slide. So as I move forward, I'll be pointing out where the nearest parks are. But this is an overview of the area. And then moving along just a little bit more, this is the plat that's being proposed itself, and then a little bit more of a rough sketch. So this is land that was the West Creek Village development. And then something to consider is this is the Creekside Lane. And so there is a stretch here that could potentially be a trail connection, if that's something that you want to consider. But if you take a look at this one, this is the layout for the proposal for this development.
Yeah, so they'll have access from Creekside Lane as well as from Engler Boulevard.
If a trail is added, but I will get to what they have proposed here in a second.
No, I mean.
Traffic
the
access.
Traffic.
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
it will be.
cars, vehicle
Cars.
access, yes.
From both Creekside Lane and from Engler
County
Boulevard.
Road 10 or.
County Road 10, yeah.
Okay.
All right, for this particular proposal, there has not been a proposal for parkland dedication. So again, they will be required to fulfill the dedication, but they did not make a proposal themselves. So you'll see the formula for that dedication. And if you jump down to the end, combined for this entire proposal, it'll be that just over $1 million point, or just under 10 acres of land that they would be required to. So it would be one or the other. But as I had mentioned previously, there is not currently in this development a proposal for any sort of park in this residential area. So to give you an idea of where neighboring parks are, so we've got this purple spot is where the development is being proposed. To the right of that is the Marsh Hollow proposed park. That one is one that is not currently developed. This one is the closest one to this development. And then next to that, closest would be the Huntersbrook Park. Neither one of these are developed, and as of right now, we do not have the funding secured to be able to develop that, so there is not a timeline in which that will happen. So that is something to keep in mind as we're making our decisions. And then from there, we've got the Lakeside Estates Park and the Laketown Park, which are both anywhere from that 3.5 to 4 miles or more away. For sidewalks and trails, for this proposal, there are also no sidewalks or trails included in the proposal.
So how, is that on purpose, do you think? Like, are they trying to, like, get by without it?
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay. I just,
They won't be able to get away from the requirement.
yeah.
But by not listing it, it gives them a chance to propose what they want. But this is where our feedback comes into play in terms of how we want them to develop the land. Because as I had indicated, it is just a proposal, so it still has to pass through city council in order to move forward. And then so just to continue on the sidewalks and trails portion, while nothing was included, developments are required to put sidewalks in at least on one side of the road for residential developments. And then for densities over 3 acres per unit, sidewalks on both sides of the street are recommended. And so that's something that you could propose as a recommendation. So those are some additional things to take in mind.
I guess I would have the same question as you. If a developer has developed in Victoria before and they know the requirement is to put sidewalks on one side of the road, why wouldn't they include it in the sketch plat? Like, did they not research what was a requirement of the city of Victoria?
Every time someone makes a proposal, our planning team is very good about making sure they are aware of the requirements.
Okay.
And so they do know that if the thing will move forward, that they will have to fulfill the requirements, whether it's in the original proposal or not.
And this is pretty close to 3 units per acre. It says 243 new homes and 83 acres. Okay.
All right, and then so we can bounce back and forth between the discussion questions and the pictures. But first question is, do you have concerns with there not being a proposal for a park in this residential development? And I will bring us back to the development layout.
I just have a quick question. Is this adjacent to the one we looked at 2 months ago?
Yes, so the one we looked at 2 months ago is right next to it.
And there's no park in there either?
You know, when I first saw this, and without knowing where the other parks were, I thought, well, that's quite a few people living in there without having a park or some space nearby. But if there's one within a half a mile that we don't have funds to develop, this might be a way. One option would be to use some of the funds that we get from the dedication to develop that closest park there. And then everybody in that area would have a park. And it's 5 acres, so you could probably do, something, similar to a Madeline Creek or something like that, where you have playground and open space or whatever. But I think normally for this many housing units, you'd want something relatively close. And I think our guideline is what? Is it a half mile or is it a mile?
Best practices is within a half mile.
Okay, so we're right on the, we're just over that, actually.
Yeah, and depending upon where in
That's-
this, because the way that it's been mapped out is the approximate is coming from the center of the development. So if you're on either far side, it would increase that. So it could potentially increase it up to a half mile to a mile.
And that's probably too far for what our standard is. If we're the city of lakes and parks, it's also a precedent.
Huntersbrook
we-
is the closest park?
Neither Marsh Hollow nor Huntersbrook are currently developed.
Yeah, I know.
So the closest developed one would be Laketown, which is 3.5 to 4 miles away.
Isn't connected anyways, yeah. I drove out, did anyone drive out to this? I drove out to this, so it's really quite interesting. So Engler Boulevard, you can see where that farm is, where the road will go in. So I don't know if this is someone's personal farm that they're keeping, you know, along Engler Boulevard. But this just sits up, you know, you can see the farm fields and everything. And then it's quite a lot. So I drove around the other way through Creekside Lane, and that's a lot of houses going in there and a lot of development. So if someone's coming in Creekside Lane, I would say that it's an absolute that Creekside Lane must have trails along it, because that's gonna be the main in for so many more vehicles, right? And then if you're a pedestrian and your closest potential park is gonna be walking along Creekside Lane to get up to either that Meadows or Hunter's Brook, like, I would say it's like not even a question that we must require sidewalks along Creekside Lane. And I guess the question, the biggest question I had is if we had any sort of timeline as to when either of the closest parks would be able to be developed. Because again, you're not gonna go out on Victoria Drive because there's no trail connections to get up to those other existing parks. And then County Road 10, there's no trails along that right now either, and it's 55 miles per hour.
Right, but
So-
Engler Boulevard's gonna get, or Engler is going to be, Carver County's gonna be changing that to 4 lanes in the future. They've been studying that road. They know they've got to expand that. So that's a long-range expansion that's happening on County Road 10.
With trails.
Well, I don't know about trails, but that's a county road, so we don't have any say on that.
Yeah,
Well, they typically, I think a couple of years ago when we talked about that, the county was, you know, they didn't commit that absolutely, but they said when they expand those, they look, especially in residential areas, they look at putting the trail in at the same time. So, but I don't know what the timeline is on that.
I have and I'm sorry if this has been covered before, but the allocation of the dollars, does that money, is it earmarked specifically for park development in another area, or can it just disappear into the slush fund of the city?
No, it's specifically
So
for,
it's specifically accounted for and earmarked for park development within the city of Victoria? Yes. Okay.
So our options are to recommend that, you know, a park space be provided within this development, or we could take the park dedication fees and, since we don't have money to develop one of those other parks, take some of that money and develop the park or the space closest to that that's been set aside in whatever other development that was.
Or maybe a mix of both. I
Right?
think
Yeah.
Right.
even a smaller park within this would be beneficial, and then taking some park, some money, and using it to develop either that park or one of the other bigger parks.
To your point earlier, if we're the city of parks and lakes and you allow developments to be built with 0 parks, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the kind of the mission of the community, right? Or the mantra of the community. I agree. Is there a balance to find of take $500,000 and bring it over to this park and then allocate a certain amount of space in the new development? I think that could be.
I mean, this is far out from any other park. I think, feels like it needs.
and then just to
Dedicated
remind you
park
of the conversation that we had with the West Creek development, because of the type of land that they were proposing, your feedback was to take that money instead of the land that they were proposing. And so that is something to take into consideration with that, is that if that proposal moves forward and is able to be carried through, then the money from that project would be parkland dedication fees.
Okay.
Jenna, can you remind me again how far it is to the Hunters Brook Park?
approximately 2 miles, depending upon where in the development you are.
Yeah, that Marsh Hollow Park, I'm trying to remember that one.
So the Hunters Brook Park is marked clearly with the City of Victoria sign. It's right along there that says Future Development, City of Victoria Park. Is this Marsh Hollow Park?
Not yet, because it's still very much fully being developed, and the developers are doing grading and things like that.
That's,
so-
okay, I didn't see it, so
Yeah.
that's why I asked.
Yeah.
And this doesn't say, oh. So they're similar-ish sized parks. Hunters Brook and Marsh Hollow, they have 5 acres and 5.4, okay, 6, okay, so similar sized.
But there's not a budget to build them.
Currently.
I guess I really like what you said about let's recommend that they find a happy medium so that the development has a park, but yet there's some money that can be set aside. I think that's probably the winner. Because obviously, I think the developers, builders are higher density allows for
More profit.
more affordable housing or, so at some point, that's why the lots keep shrinking.
Yeah,
So we need to set Parkside aside for that because people don't have the yards like I have at my house. Since my house was built in 2009, the lots now are half the size of what my house is on. So you can't play soccer in the backyard like you can at my house, right? So I think that makes a park even more important. But there's probably a balance there to Jacob's point.
Do we know, and some of that's an excellent point, do we know if there's are we aware of any future development next to this?
Which way?
I mean, the answer
Anyway.
is yes, right? I mean, the answer is
assume
yes
yes.
unless,
That what we are?
I would assume yes, but there is nothing that's currently being proposed for any of the spaces.
So the question is we need a park in the area.
Yes.
I mean, there's no question about that. And I think even with our standards, and I didn't realize when you said, if our standard's half a mile, we're already, some on the one end are gonna be close enough, others aren't. And so we either need something in the development, so I think the split makes sense, and then we know we have it there. And then when we have future ones there, maybe on the far end, there's room for a park on some of these others. I don't even know how the farms or whatever breaks out in that area, but, so, any other thoughts, comments?
I just have a question, more questions, sorry. So how are parks prioritized then? Are they prioritized by like when the development happened? So like, I don't know if Hunters Brook development started before Marsh Hollow Park development.
It did.
So,
They
So
are
would Hunters
prioritized
Brook-
based on city council directive.
okay,
So you guys can make recommendations to city council, but it's city council's decision as to how we move forward.
yeah, but, okay, so there's not a precedent like this neighborhood was built first, so therefore they get the park funds to complete their park first.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, so what I've heard so far is there seems to be building a consensus around this area needs some parkland and, not necessarily the full-blown, what was it, 9 acres they're supposed to have, that we can kind of split. Would recommend having some of that parkland and taking some of the money to be able to develop, other parks or even that park for that matter.
And the only thing I would add to that is sidewalks.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about sidewalks and trails next.
Gosh,
All right.
Yeah.
glaring
Those
goodness.
sidewalks, isn't that already a requirement?
Sidewalk on one side is required and it's recommended depending upon density on both sides.
Can we go to that map of the development itself? That one, yeah. So that's Creekside that goes through there? So that one we talked about there's a trail, we've talked about a trail. So I think that should be a trail, at least.
Side of the road, is that-
Right, through Creekside, that seems to be a main artery and will be probably even in the next development if it comes. So that would be a good one to have, make sure we have a trail on. And so I don't know what the difference, trail and a sidewalk, I guess. A trail is a little easier defined for people who are out walking or riding their bike or whatever. So if we have a chance to do it right, let's do it right. So I think my thought would be at least on Creekside, we should have a trail. And I think sidewalks, you know, there's city rules, ordinances already, you know, they should meet that. And I guess the planning commission deals with all that sort of thing too, but I guess we can put our 2 cents worth in and say, at least a sidewalk would get people to the trail. You know, if you got little kids that you're taking out for a bike ride, or even bigger kids going out on their own, it'd be nice that they don't have to be in the street to get to the trail. And then we don't also have people coming 15 years from now saying we want a trail because we can't get to our area. Now's the time to do it.
Can't get to Quick Trip to get there. They're slushy like my kid. I agree. I think where Creekside comes in and goes through, it's similar to, I live in Lake Bridge and we have we have a parkway that runs through the neighborhood behind the houses with a trail next to it. And it's great because that carries most of the traffic to the further parts of the neighborhood, but it also, that's where the majority of these people are walking dogs and biking. And it's in my backyard, right? I look out my deck and the trail is out there. And it's actually really nice because it saves on traffic going in front of all the houses. And then we have sidewalks on one side and they all, you know, connect up. And I think it's a nice model that it works well.
Yeah. I think we would want, so that the green line was proposed as a trail in the previous sketch plat, I think, from 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's the side of the road.
Yeah.
When I drove down Creekside, that the trail is.
So I think we would want to see that continued in this development as well, for whatever ends up being built on the west side of it. So it's all connected.
And on the same side of the road.
Yeah.
So we are,
Yes.
we don't have cases where people have to cross
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
unnecessarily.
Do we want to propose a trail that goes north at all? We talked about that with the,
Are we far enough on this side of the shooting range now to go north?
yeah, I don't know.
Because that's just north of that, right?
Last
It is.
development.
I don't think we
Range is
are.
like over here.
Oh, it's still up over that. Okay, we're quite a ways from that then.
I don't think that's right, Jenna. I thought it was just north of the development we looked at last time.
Yeah, it's right
Yeah, I think those lines are the shooting.
It's where all the, I think the woods are, right?
Here?
Right in here.
I think it's just north of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any master planning as far as roads that will go north and south that we know of?
Not that I know of. That might be a question for Planning Commission.
Yeah, I think that would be an important question, because if there's a road that goes, there's gonna be a main artery that goes north and south there, we'd also wanna have a trail along that.
Yeah,
If there isn't gonna be, then it probably doesn't matter.
well, I also, if Engler is redeveloped and if there are trails along Engler, then I imagine that would be kind of how people cross the train tracks, so we might want a connection out of this neighborhood to Engler, a trail connection.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's hard when it's kind of when it's piecemeal and each developer comes with their own thing, because they're just thinking about their development, and
Yes.
We're trying to connect it together.
so there's enough people looking at this between us and the planning commission and the city council, but hopefully we all keep an eye on the bigger picture as to what the future is going to look like, and not just
One,
one little aspect of it that might make sense now, but wouldn't make any sense with development around it. So I guess that could go in a recommendation that, to the planning commission is just a comment about, master planning, if there's gonna be any main north-south artery in there that goes through that development, or connects to that development, then we might want to consider trails, going north and south as well, in addition to the creek side. And we talked about sidewalks according to what the current ordinances are.
And I mean, Jenna, do you think we would get an opportunity at Park and Rec, or would it be will these come back to us or no? For final review?
No.
They never will.
It'll go to city council.
I'll go to city council.
So this is the opportunity for us to provide feedback.
Yeah,
For sure, we're all welcome to show up at a city council.
yeah.
Yes.
Talk about it then too.
Yeah, I just, again, when we keep looking at these and again, they're being proposed by different developers, I keep thinking like, well, how do we ensure that there's like consistency from one developer to the next when they're connected, like they are right next to each other, right? So a resident isn't going to understand like, oh, why would my townhomes have sidewalks on both sides, but the next development over my townhomes only have sidewalks on one side? So I don't know how city council could do that, but ensure that there's a consistency between them. Because I would hate for us to have said, okay, in one instance, okay, we can suffice with sidewalks on one side, right? And then the next one, do two. It's almost like, well, no, then if they're both coming at the same time, both should have the same
Might have to go to a
requirements.
city council meeting.
I think if the density rule applies, the council needs to apply it equally amongst all developments, and hopefully they are,
Yeah,
And if they are, then there's no argument. If the density rule, if that applies to this development, then
and then it has to be,
it is what it is.
okay.
Yeah, I do think the train tracks are kind of a concern for both of these. Or how trails would cross the train tracks is something I'm curious about.
And where's the train track on this?
It's a diagonal,
I think it's right between those two.
It's the diagonal line that's, I'll point to it.
Little Marsh Hollow Park, diagonal.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, yeah.
So if you wanted to get to the quick trip from, or,
Yeah.
from here, from the purple box, you have to cross the train tracks.
Yep.
Currently, yeah. But if the Creekside has a trail that will go out to connects out onto Victoria Drive, then they
Yeah,
have access on a trail,
If there's a trail there, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, train tracks are always not in the most ideal spots. They were there a long time ago, it looked great back
We went through the.
75 years ago or 100 years ago. When
Well, yeah, now, we had trolley car train tracks all over the place too that we're now replacing with light rail. We turned those into bike trails. Now we're building new tracks. It all comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah. Other thoughts or suggestions that we'd like to pass along?
And I presume this is a council, it's just a question, I might be behind, but currently guided as low and medium density residential. Was that a planning commission recommendation or?
Can you say that one more time? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, the low and middle density housing? It's in the proposed layout. Currently guided as low and medium density residential. Is that a planning commission designation or how does that? That's a very high density neighborhood.
Where are you referring to?
It's on here.
In the agenda report.
It was, that was a discussion with the planning commission.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you a loop there.
Okay, so let's, for review again. Trail on Creekside that matches up on the same side of the road as the other development. Recommending sidewalks that meet current ordinance area, a trail that would connect onto a potential trail on Angler from this development. And then asking the Planning Commission, City Council to, if they have a master plan and there's gonna be a main road that's gonna go north and south through this area, that to consider a trail on that as well. And then we also already talked about the park thing, so this is the trails and sidewalks. Anything else that somebody would like to add, or did I state that properly?
You stated it properly.
Okay. So we have a consensus? Okay, I don't think we don't need to vote on this, just Jenna can write it up and share with the Planning Commission and the City Council.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
Were you looking for, you had a question about amenities on that slide, Jenna, were you looking for?
Just if there's any other neighborhood amenities that you want to be considered for this area other than the park.
Okay.
What would an example of that be?
That's open-ended. This isn't a time to discuss like what would be in a park because we don't know what that would be. We would do engagement closer to that piece, but if there's anything else that you can think of.
I mean, I've said this before, that I think we need more just natural areas within these high-density area. Like, we don't have to mow fence post to fence post, and there needs to be more just land set aside for just
Green
natural
space.
green space. I think that as the city of Parks and Lakes, that's important, and that's what drew us out here, was that it wasn't one development after another with square blocks of suburban sprawl as far as you can see, right? We want to, I think that's what draws people to this area, and I want to keep that in mind as we can, because as you asked, is there another development coming? Absolutely. It's just a matter of when, you know? And we want to make sure that, I want to make sure that we still have that feel out here, that it's not just square blocks after square blocks of homes as far as you can see. So.
Can you go back to the picture of the site layout for this development specifically? Because they own the land along Chaska Creek there then too, right? It's part of their space.
I'm not as familiar with this land as you are. I'm not sure where you're referring to.
Well, so Chaska Creek is in the top,
The very north end of the,
Okay.
behind the red blocks.
Those blue lines.
Yeah, so Chaska Creek, so, I think with the point on green space, I don't know what it's like back there, because I couldn't physically get back there. But is there an opportunity for like a trail back there, or a boardwalk back there? Like,
I'm guessing
something
that
that
anything
benefits
yeah.
residents, right? Because right now, this just benefits the developer.
What I'm guessing is any piece of buildable land within this
Yeah.
right now has a lot plotted out. So anything that's not is going to become green space because it's not buildable. My point is, we need green space that's not just unbuildable property, or
Yeah.
property that's within I wouldn't call it a floodplain, but like where there's potential water running, something like that. I think we just need to be aware of having some just natural green space areas, not clear cutting every tree that's on the property and, you know, regrading it.
Agreed.
So back to another question on the on the top here, the line that goes from the left side up to the top.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, what is that?
Those white lines?
Yeah, is that a retaining wall? Is that a utility lines?
I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah,
I think it's a suggestion of for a future road, maybe.
yeah, that could be.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's
It's
the
a
way it
little
looks
plausible because of
on the bottom.
what it says down here.
It's a good guess.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But I will say, keep in mind, if they're proposing that on other land, they can't make that guarantee, so.
Do you know if how this density compares to like Lamarche Hollow or Hunter's Brook?
Not without looking it up.
This just in looking at it, this looks a lot more dense than some of the other developments we've looked at.
Absolutely.
I think there's more units and more, yeah, there's more townhomes, but there's more individual lots here, and it seemed like this does seem more like a or suburban sprawl than some of the other ones. And part of it may be there's some of the other ones had wetlands and other things that kind of broke them up. This may not, so.
Part of the natural landscape of this area lends itself to not having square blocks for miles, right? That's a good thing. But some of it doesn't, and I think we still need to be aware of trying to set aside some property just.
Okay, anything else for Jenna? If not, I think that was it for the agenda. Anybody have anything else? If not, a motion's in order to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. All right. I'll
Okay,
second.
motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
We are adjourned. Thanks, Jenna.